Welcome back to another episode of the Buddhist Millionaire Podcast. I am Matt Jardine, your host and author of How to Be a Buddhist Millionaire, 9 practical steps to being happy in a materialist world. Let's do some housekeeping before we get on with today's work. This podcast is powered by coffee. So if you like what you hear, please go ahead and buy me a coffee at my Buy Me a Coffee page. The link is somewhere down here. If you care enough, you'll find it. Also, thanks to our podcast partners, Friends, the platform for podcasters who want to reach everyone, Missing Letter, Grow Your Social Presence the Smart Way, and of course, the brilliant Book Award Pro, how authors become award-winning authors. Shout out to Norway. Thank you, everyone. You joined our country of listeners this week. Love Norway. Got some good friends in Norway. So thanks for joining, listeners, and hope you enjoy this one. Now, I want to get cracked on today because this is a very special edition, all right? We originally spoke to today's guest back in July when he was still preparing for his fight against Khalil Roundtree in UFC Vegas 36, which took place just a little over a week ago. And we're going to rejoin him to actually talk about what happened in the fight and how what he went through might benefit all of you who are listening. So please welcome back one of the show's favorite athletes, the man himself, the Baltic gladiator, Modestas Bukauskus. Hey, buddy, you okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you, man. How you doing? Thank you once again, obviously, for having me back on the show and everything. I really appreciate it.
Don't thank me, nothing. Thank you. I have to start this, actually. This is with congratulations, because I'm going to read your tweet. It was a tweet or an Instagram post that you put. I'm going to read that out in a second.
Yeah.
Basically, you do. Now, I'm talking now as a writer, as a fan, as a friend, and as a podcaster, all of those things. But you do what very few people do, is that you actually have the courage and guts to talk about your stories. And honestly, the majority of people of us who are listening, right, we are not going to be the 1% of people who are going to win stuff. So our daily struggles, we want to hear from people of how they get through their losses. Right. And so you coming on is the gift, the honor is all ours. Right. I just want to share this with you guys who are listening. This is absolute class. This was from Mo from, I think it was Instagram. Could have been a tweet. Might have been Facebook.
I think it was Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. Let me read this out. This is absolute typical you. I'll read this as word perfect. Okay. So this is from Big Mo. Not the result we wanted, not the fairy tale ending. Fair play to Khalil Roundtree on a well-executed game plan. He is a warrior, true warrior, and it was an honor to share the cage with him. This fight has already made me better just from analyzing my errors and highlighting what I need to work on. I still have so much more to give and so much more to showcase. I just need to figure out a way of expressing that in the cage. My dream of becoming UFC champion is still very much in motion. My journey will just take longer than others. I have fought the toughest competition, their very best, in my first 4 fights with the promotion. With this comes many lessons learned. As my confidence grows, my light in this division will shine much brighter. I'm fully ready to continue this journey all the way to the top through the ups and the downs. First, I must focus on recovery, and then I will make a historic comeback. I am the hero of my own story, and I'm on the brink of turning things around. The hashtags are important. Hashtag comeback stronger, hashtag UFC, and hashtag, of course, the Baltic gladiator. It's class, man. It's just, I don't expect anything less from you, but that's utter class. So before we move on, from your eyes, because we very rarely see that, right? Can you tell us, play us through what happened last weekend?
Yeah. So, I mean, everything leading up to the fight went perfectly in, like, in sparring and training. Like, obviously you have your up days and your down days, but there was very few down days. I had very good recovery. I was able to put 100% out into my training sessions. Like, everything couldn't have gone any better. In that sense, in terms of being able to train and strategize and how I'm performing and stuff like that, everything was going great. Something that not many people know is that actually prior to the fight, I actually injured my knee, and had I
In camp or prior to the camp?
Yeah. So in camp, but it's actually been an injury that has been sustained over years. Okay. So, before my Cage Warriors fight, I said that I'd got an injury 3 weeks before the fight, and I was like very close to pulling out. But Leanne, my physiotherapist, she's amazing. We basically just worked to basically get to the fight to be as fit as possible to go, and then we ended up winning. So obviously she did an absolutely amazing job. But that was the start of an injury that sort of would just get progressively worse as time went on. I thought it was because I had one knee dislocation. I thought that was my second. That was actually an ACL partial tear, which I had no idea. I thought instability is caused by dislocation. It's not. It's caused by an ACL.
Yeah, it's the ligaments that hold it in place. When they're strained, that's when you get it.
So one good fix. So that was in 2019. But to be fair, Leanne did an amazing job to get my muscles so strong that the foundation for my leg became so good that I, was able to handle that. And then, so I think it was, just before the Oleg Shaychuk fight, obviously I went and got surgery because I had a medial meniscus tear. So I had a meniscectomy, 5 weeks recovery. I was back in and stuff like that. And obviously I fought that fight. And then basically leading up to this fight, about 10, 12 weeks out, I had another little accident in wrestling, and I felt like a little crack again, a little bit of instability. And I thought, maybe it's just a bit of a dislocation again or something, or it'll be okay. And then, come to find out that just looking back on everything historically from talking to the doctors and stuff like that, I mean, I got an MRI, both my lateral and medial meniscus were torn, plus another chunk of my ACL. I think that got to about 70% torn. This is now 10 weeks out from the Khalil fight. Right. So I had to deal with that the whole camp. I had clicking in my knee, and it was a struggle, but again, Leanne helped me with my recovery, my physio and stuff like that to get me to where I was. And by the time I got to the fight, I felt good. I had to adjust my training. You don't when you face a challenge, you just go straight in and jump over that hurdle instead of getting knocked back by it. So, and obviously it was such a big fight, it's such a big opportunity, I couldn't say no. So and especially it being the UFC London card. So obviously there were little problems in training where I'd feel like the clicking and stuff like that, but I just got on with it. I was able to work around it, and I felt good, felt strong, felt great, felt very well prepared. So everything in terms of preparation, my weight cut was great. Didn't have to cut any water. I literally showed up, was on weight.
Yeah, you look good, man. You look good at weigh-ins. I was like, you were ripped. Good.
Yeah, so I was in great shape. So everything, aside from obviously having this weakness in my leg, so obviously aside from that, everything went perfect. But unfortunately, for some reason on the fight, when I got in the cage, things were just not working. Like things that I'd been looking to do in the fight to get me going, to sort of feel your way in, get the jab working, do certain tactical things. The tactical things then just didn't work because he kept countering those things. Things that had been working in training or in sparring were then not working in the fight, and it just made my head switch a little bit. I'm like,
yeah, because he would. I mean, firstly, for listeners, I'm assuming that everyone has watched it, but if you haven't, just to be clear, Khalil is no mug. I mean, I've been watching Khalil's stuff from Tough Days, right? And I know he has his ups and downs, which I think are probably more mental than anything else. But he came out hyper aggressive. I mean, did you break your nose? I mean, look broken, but it looks like mine now.
Yeah, well, do you know what? My nose was I've already broken it quite a load of times actually in the past, but obviously he hit a shot, and I think, yes, because on the x-ray after the fight, I had fractured it once again, but obviously it still looks like it's like normal. So and luckily it's not, it hasn't shifted anymore to that side. It's back into the same spot. But so obviously he caught me with a couple of good shots, and it was all off of counters. But I'll go into this a little bit more if you're looking at my whole UFC career so far as a whole. But yeah, so the shots that I was trying to land were not landing, or when I was trying to land it, he was just coming over the top, big shots, and you know, he cracked me with a couple, but he never rocked me. He never was close to finishing me. I was always in the fight. That was one thing that, you know, everyone's like, oh, you got caught with big punches and this and that. It's like, okay, yeah, but they were never, it was never close to me getting knocked out.
Yeah,
Funny enough.
that definitely was the sense I got watching. It was like, okay, they hurt. What I found, what's really interesting is that it's not so much that you're in danger, but often those things, as you said earlier, they spin your plan, don't they? They're like, oh, okay, now it's not going to plan. How does that makes,
yeah,
when that's happened to me at my low level, it makes me panic.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're 100% hit the nail on the head there, is that when your plan's not working, you do sort of panic a little bit, because you're like, well, what the hell, like, do I need to? And the thing is, I think it also comes back from what your background in martial arts is. If I was a wrestler, my immediate reaction would be to shoot, but I'm not a predominant wrestler. I'm a predominant striker. So my way of trying to get back into the fight is through striking to then set up. So my secondary thing is my wrestling, which this is the other thing. Tactically, I didn't do the correct things. I should have then shot for a takedown, because that would have been the best tactical decision to make, is to shoot, because he was swinging big shots and I was shot underneath. I would have had the momentum to take him down easily. Yeah. I've got a good ground game. I've got a good ground and pound, and I'm pretty sure I could have kept him down on the floor and done some damage. But unfortunately, in the heat of the fight, you get caught cracked with a load of big shots. You're trying to find your way back into the fight from your predominant art, which is my striking, trying to get that back into it, and then your things just not working. I sort of built a little bit confidence more, like, as the fight went on. In the second round, I was starting to land my shots more. He was missing a lot of his shots. I was slipping away, and then obviously until the psychic ended up landing. But because, you know, everything in training weren't great, I was getting takedowns, I was getting this, I was doing these things, but it's because everything was just working. Well, I'm like, okay, well, great, this is all working. And historically, again, in the Crute fight, when things aren't working, or they're countering you, or they're messing up your rhythm, that's what then caused my downfall. Yep. In my debut, I was able to let fly and do whatever I wanted. I won the fight. In my last fight, arguably, a lot of people thought I won that fight. And, you know, again, I was given the opportunity to be able to do whatever I wanted, in a sense that I was able to show more of my skill set. But again, you know, when it gets so realistically looking at the Crute fight and this fight, it's just certain things got shut down, and then I had to be then forced to adapt. And it was a very fast and explosive start, which obviously everyone's seen. I'll have a bit more of a slow start. So these are all things I'm going to need to work on, because realistically, the wrestling, I've got jiu-jitsu. Why are you not using it in the fight? These are things I could have definitely. It's the
grey zone, isn't it? I've been thinking about this a lot. Like MMA, like life in general, right? The whole is more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
Not the skill, as you say. You've got all the skills separately, and but it's how they get put together, and that in itself, I think, is really underestimated. Anyone who's listening who thinks that's easy, putting the grey zone together, the bits between the bits, the stitching that weaves the things together, that's where the mastery is, Mo. And that's, I mean, also, you're a young man still, right? I mean, you're 27?
27, yeah.
So yeah, and that's tough. And what do you? It's kind of thinking out the box, isn't it? It's lacing those things together, which I know you'll get. But have you got a plan to do that?
100%. I mean, I know. Me and my dad already talked about this. You know, we watched the fight back, and it's funny because in your head you make it out to be a lot worse than what it really is. So I thought about how the fight went, and I literally, as soon as the fight was over and I went, you know, I got rushed to hospital afterwards, I was like, that was fucking shit. Like, I thought, this is probably one of my worst performances ever. And when I actually looked at it back, it wasn't my best performance, but it also wasn't my worst performance.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I would like to guess that I've seen all of them. I might have missed a few early doors, but it definitely wasn't awful.
Yeah. So, and I could see I was actually finding my way back into the fight where, you know, that's where I feel like the tide or the shift in the fight was about to happen, because he was starting to gas from throwing all these big, heavy shots.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, he essentially, he broke his hand on my head. So, you know, like already.
I would take that victory every day. I'd have a medal saying, this is, so, you know, a break hand hit here.
I mean, that was part of the strategy, obviously.
Of course.
You know, it's like, you know, things get a bit crazy. But, yeah, so, I mean, look, he fought a great fight. One thing is that, you know, there was a lot of mutual respect after the fight. He still did come to see me, and I really appreciated that. Yeah, I felt, you know, one thing that he mentioned was that he said he was very well prepared for me, and I can see that with every single one of my fights in the UFC. One thing that is a common theme is that every fighter that I fought is no slouch. Like, I've taken hard fights straight away, and then aside from that, they've all come in the best of the best. They come in strategically and everything, like the best prepared. It's weird because technically, if you look at the rankings and everything like that, I'm not like, you know, in the top 15 or anything like that. But I'm, you know, they all seem to find me some sort of a bigger threat for them to have to really prepare better for. So in a sense, I'm grateful for that, which means I'm fighting the best versions of all of these athletes. But at the same time, there's obviously the heartbreaking side, which is having to lose to these athletes at the same time. Which
you must keep that in perspective, because it's really, because otherwise it's quite disempowering, right? I think that you mustn't forget the level you're fighting at. I mean, you all as men are phenomenal athletes. It's not like you're losing to me, which in which case, you know, you probably need to be handing your gloves in. But these are. I remember when my son went first to play at Quins, so he's gone from club rugby to, you know, Quins, what's their academies, and you think, my God, this, you know, no wonder the kid's now not going from scoring 18 tries a game to none. This is the highest level, and you're at the highest level, so you're not losing to mugs, man.
Yeah, and you know, the guys, like I said, strategically, they've been preparing very well for me. And I must be grateful that obviously that they think so highly of me to want to prepare so well against me. And at the same time, I'm fighting them at their very best. So if I can even handle them a little bit, it shows a lot of promise for the future. So, you know, but I guess you could say on the flip side, maybe I should have taken a bit of a slower approach into the game. I sort of, you know, it might have been felt that I sort of rushed my first 4 fights in the UFC, and I should have maybe, but at the same time, I don't look at it that way. I look at it that I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of heartbreak, you know, when you're going a long stream, or it's almost like I feel like I'm going back in a massive circle back to when I had my first 2 defeats. It's like everything's going great, you're visualizing everything's going on point, you're thinking everything's, you know, and like even up to like, you know, the Cage Warriors wins and everything, visualizing everything's going right, this, that, you know, like law of attraction, blah blah blah, everything's going great. But now I'm hit with the complete opposite side of the I've
got this in my notes, right, for a little bit, but I wanted to touch on that because this is something I think about a lot. And obviously with my book, I deal with that because it came under a title called what did I say before? Why do bad things happen to good people? Because you hear this with law of attraction, and McGregor says all this sort of stuff. You know, you do all the stuff, you're visualizing, I can feel it, I've got my hand raised. Yeah, I mean, you know, I can feel every second. And yet, and I find this really fascinating, how we kind of buy into these ideals of positivity, right? And then how do we come back from that when they let us down? So tell me your thought, because I know this, I know this firsthand, but this is not my story. So tell you how you feel about that, what that does to you, because it dents the confidence slightly when the things you believed in suddenly leave you.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny you say that, because you look at like I said, I had my camera, you know, recording stuff in fight week. You look at how positive and happy and energetic I was, and then, you know, obviously there's been a bit of a shift, I guess you could say, after, not necessarily shifts, because I'm still goofy. I'm a still goofy guy. I have a good time with my dad and everything, and we're still in pretty good spirits. But because things have sort of not really turned out the way that I wanted to, it's like it makes you question a lot of things. Like, obviously I'm religious to the point where I do believe in God. I mean, I've got religious tattoos and stuff like that. Like, I believe in a higher power. I believe in the universe, and I believe praying. There's just certain things that happen that make you think, like, is this even like all real? Should I even still be a good person? Because other people act like freaking arseholes.
Clearly, the good guy's not winning. That's the thing.
It's like
take away from that.
And it's like, why the hell I try and be courteous to people? I never, I don't cheat on my girlfriend. Like, I'm faithful. I'm I try and be a nice person. I try and put other people first before myself. And yet I'm the one who's getting hit with all the bloody bad luck. Now, you could say, obviously I had a lot of good luck, getting into the UFC and, the Cage Warriors career that I had and stuff like that. So that, I guess that's the flip side to it. But, I prayed before the fight that neither me or Khalil would come out of the fight seriously injured. And I'm the one who gets seriously injured when I'm praying for both athletes. It's like, so I'm sitting here praying for both athletes to be healthy. I'm out, and technically he's out for 6 months because he's got a broken hand, and I've got a bad leg. So I prayed to God for help with that, and just for me to perform at the best of my ability. I didn't perform at the best of my ability, and I got injured. So I'm like, what is even the point of having any faith when literally these things that you're asking for, which isn't in a selfish manner, it's done in a selfless manner. It's done in a way that like you just want certain things. Like I'm not asking for victory. I'm asking for the powers for me to perform at my best, and stuff like that. And I'm not given these things. It's just sort of, like I said, it makes you question your faith. It makes you question law of attraction, because you write all this stuff on your board, you visualize it, you do all this, and then
you listen to Tony Robbins, you listen to the stuff, and none of the fuckers work. I hear you.
And it's and the thing is, it's like there's actually another book. I can't remember the name of it. I think but it's based. The actual law of attraction is based off of this book, and I was reading it. And essentially, the part that the law of attraction was missing was that you have to work for everything that you so visualize and want. And that was a big thing. Like, the law of attraction was just talking about sitting, thinking, visualizing, but actually putting the work in is the important part that will get everything going. So it's like, I've been working my ass off. I've been doing everything that I need to do. I've been, do you know what I mean? I've been doing the visualizing. I didn't miss any training sessions due to anything. Like, there was no tiredness. Like, everything was good. Obviously had the little injury, but aside from that, everything was like, how I've been working my ass off, and things didn't go your way. But so initially I felt like the world was against me. I felt like, do you know what? I'm just going to become an absolute dick and not care about anyone, because why should I care about everyone else and want good for everyone else when literally the world just hates me, or God hates me? Like, I had a lot of these really dark thoughts come into my head, and it's hard to sort of come out of those feelings. But then slowly, I feel like life's all about momentum, and I just think I've just had really bad momentum as of late. The whole of last year, most of last year, and obviously the whole of this year has just not been very great. But there's been some silver linings. I think the law of attraction is working, because on my board I actually wrote that I would get re-signed by the UFC, and I do feel, although I'm not in the best spot, I feel that will happen. Like, aside from not winning the fight, not having the record that I want, and blah blah blah, which is the stuff that I wrote on my board. One thing I wrote is that to get re-signed by the UFC. So I think the law of attraction is working, just not in the way that I expected it.
Now you've got it. Now I am. As you know, the whole purpose of the Buddhist Millionaire podcast, you've read the books, or even if you haven't, it's about that. because I have my whole last 25 years has been about this, why it works for some, why it doesn't. And the point is what you've just said. It's going on, but it doesn't go on as we can see. We have limited, I have even more limited now when I take these off, but we have limited views as humans, right? And we know full well, Mo, that what you see right now is a lie, because my hands have cells, neurons that I can't see. So you know they're confirmation bias. They're seeing what they can see, right? So we know by definition our view is limited. Now, when we imagine stuff, right, it doesn't always go, it is not that it doesn't go to plan, it doesn't always go the circuits. And I learned this from the pilgrimage, right? I kept going, why am I'm here on the holiest thing, one of the holiest things in the world. If there's anywhere where the heavens shouldn't diss you, it's here. And yet I've walked 3 days out of and I have no time or money. Why are they fucking me over like this? Excuse my language, right? But we're all grown-ups here. But what I've realized is the shift. For example, let's do this game, right? And everyone's listening. Pay attention to this. I'm very passionate about this. If you put on your board, right? Okay, my first vision, get in the UFC, done. Win my first fight, 4 fights, boom. Light heavyweight champion, boom, right? You'd get to about 7 of your visions, and trust me, you'd soon be sick of it. Because there's a point where it's not actually the end goal, you go up the back. It's the journey on the way. It's the people you love on the way. It's the effort you take to show what an amazing bloke. That is what is life-changing. You could hit every goal you like, right? And it'd be like, that's why sometimes I wonder, sometimes the idea of going to heaven after freaks me out. Because I'm like, that would be a bit dull. Can you imagine it being nice all the time? It's the problem with living in the Middle East. It's always sunny, right? So you don't then appreciate the blue clouds. When you come back to England and there's a lot of grey, life is experienced in the contrast. And that's 100% going on. And that's what's happening for you right now, is that, okay, there's a lot of contrast, but when it comes big, it's going to feel like magic.
Oh, well, and I definitely agree with you. Like, this is where I feel like I've come full circle. And, you know, it's almost like I feel like I'm in a very similar position. It's like back when I lost 2 in a row, no one really believed in me. I was very upset. I had to try and claw my way back up. A lot of people that are close to you as well just stop believing in you, stop wanting these things. Like, the people who are very close to me obviously still think that I can do good things and this and that, but a lot of people just sort of lose faith, or people that you want to have faith in you end up losing faith in you, and, you know, people act in funny ways and stuff like that, and then you're just literally trying to build yourself back up. And then, you know, then I had an injury, and then like no money, no work, and this and that, and that, like everything was just literally just falling on top of me. And then it was my journey to come back, to reinvigorate myself, to re-identify myself, to come back better. And then obviously that's when I went on pretty much for me a historic run through Cage Warriors to get to the belt, and then obviously get signed by the UFC, which had been my long time goal, which, you know, for that time period when things were bad, seemed like the furthest thing away from happening.
Exactly.
And it's like,
absolutely.
It was years in advance that I just had to realize that, okay, this is my particular path. This is what is needed for me to go and achieve these things. I think it's exactly the same thing here. So yeah, I've now got a knee injury, but with it's amazing that the UFC takes such good care of their athletes, and they're able to help.
I assume they do, but I always wonder. So they do. They get you the scans, and do they give you the treatment and stuff?
They're taking care of me. So I've got an operation on Thursday, and I will have about a 4 or 5 month recovery before I'm back in full on. So realistically, actually, this is why I say there's always the good things that come out of it, because actually the injury wasn't as bad as people had thought. I'm not going to go into all of that too much, but essentially what what I thought would have been about a 9 to 12 month recovery now looks like it's probably only going to be a 4 to 5, which
Okay, that's good to hear.
so it's an extremely, like I said, out of all the crap that has been happening in my life so far, and like in terms of the last year and a half and stuff like that, and me wanting to make it's like flashbacks to me. I wanted to make a good impression on Cage Warriors. I didn't do that. Like I wanted to do these things, and they stopped believing in you, and then then they sort of just like, oh, we'll throw you some fights just to keep you occupied, and the next thing you know, you start becoming the star. I almost feel like we're coming back into that same situation. It's like not to, clearly they seen something in me, because for them to put me on the main card again, this is why I generally thought that was my calling, because the first time I was on the main card, I'd lost the crew. Second time, now we're going to show everyone what's up, and it didn't go that way. So now it's like you're really being pushed back down to the bottom of the heap, and you're like, okay, well, I need to sort of work my way back up. But the good things, like the things that have kept me motivated, is that look how quickly I'm getting an operation on Thursday. My recovery starts from there, and I'll be able to watch films. I'll be able to like in terms of tape on like techniques and stuff like that. And like me and my dad, we've already formulated a plan as to how we're going to come back from this, and how we're going to be able to bring my techniques out into the fight, because that's the issue. It's not a skill deficiency. It is the issue of
it's bringing it out when you have to kind of think on your feet. I mean, that's the master.
Exactly.
But listen to me, you must remember this. When you said here about kind of going back to the bottom of the pile, right? But you have to put that in perspective. For you, that's what it feels like. But the bottom of a pile isn't everyone else's bottom of a pile. None of us have touched Cage Warriors. None of us have been a Cage Warrior champion. None of us has got a US contract. So even falling to the, as you say, the bottom of the pile is already a massive, massive achievement. And I think very much the same with Connor. People go, oh, he's lost it. Don't forget, to lose it, you have to have been at the heights. It's very important that you acknowledge what you've already done and the magic and the miracles that have already come into your life. They're massive, man. Most people never do what you're doing.
And that's what gives me confidence for not only the future, but it also gives me, it helps keep me having the feeling of sorry, what's the word for it? Appreciation, like, and being grateful, because I've got a lot to be grateful for. I've got a roof over my head. Although things are not going so well in this particular area, I'm for the time being, I'm still in the UFC. And obviously I look, I'm very much hoping that they'll re-sign me. And then obviously at that point, then I've really got to prove myself, and, I can't mess up at that point. But that's where I feel like everything's just coming into play. It's like, like you said, my journey up until that point, everything was going great. It's like, well, look, I needed to have these bumps in the road, because now I'm going to make even more adjustments in order to bring the best out of me, because I have the skill set. It's just, like I said, me and my dad, we've already formulated a plan to how the training is going to look like. Things are going to become a bit more difficult, obviously, in terms of, I'm going to probably have to go and work again and stuff like that. But I feel like then maybe it just gives you more of a sense of even more like gratefulness, like, oh, well, look, I'm in such a great position. Let me just work even more, a little bit harder, like make things a little bit tougher to then make it, do you know what I mean, make things better in the future. I've got so many plans to help my family, to do all these things. I think those are still in line for me, but it's like, I've got to take things day by day, take things step by step. And, realistically, like I said, to have an operation done so quickly under the UFC supervision with the best doctors, getting me back so quickly when I'm suspended for 6 months anyways, but my recovery will take about 4 to 5, and then I'll be training back in for a fight and correcting the errors and and stuff like that, and then we'll come back whenever we're fully 100% ready. It sparks another thing for me to do my YouTube a bit more and stuff like that, so, and to learn how to edit things a bit better for myself. So realistically, as much as everything's really bad and, you know, gloomy, and I've had some very dark thoughts, and I still have sleepless nights. I mean, last night I couldn't sleep. You know, you think, because you keep running around in your head as to, you know, the feeling of embarrassment and shame, and not fighting the way you see how some people talk about you and stuff like that. But that's actually one thing I also wanted to touch on, which is quite fascinating for me, which also just proves to me that, you know, like, clearly I was coming back into the fight, is that, you know, the first time round of all the sort of bad things that happened in my life early on in my career, I had a lot of people stop believing in me. I had a lot of people not message me and stuff like that, or they would send me bad things on Instagram and stuff like that. But realistically, after this fight, I mean, I've had about 5 messages in total that are like, you know, you should quit, and, you know, you suck and whatever, right? Which is, you know, you get stuff like that.
Yeah,
but for the most part,
I almost, anyway, I'm not even going to get involved in people who have any opinion who've never been in the cage. They drive me insane.
Exactly. And obviously I don't pay attention to that anyways, but I just think it's funny that actually the ratio of good to bad is bad. Like, out of 5 bad messages, I've had literally hundreds of amazing messages of support.
That's what I've been following. Love. I've been looking. There's a load of support.
And you know, I think, again, things work in mysterious ways. Like that post that I did on Twitter about, you know, cut Khalil some slack, like, you know, you just want to fight.
I had this to read. Can I just read that?
Yeah, go ahead.
This was the second. I had 2 posts I wanted to read. This was the second one. Very quickly, to give you some quick context, if you haven't seen it. Mo's fight finished with essentially what's called an oblique kick, or in Japanese called kansatsugeri, which is a knee stab. If you imagine you're trying to break a bit of wood and you line it up against the side of the house and you smash it in the middle, it's designed to break the knee. Anyway, the 3, I think it was Anik, DC, and Bisping, I think, in the booth, all of their faces were like, oh, as was mine, right? Anyway, very quickly, this just, you can see the context, but it's a pretty nasty technique. And so most people were outraged that they were thrown. And then there's lots of opinions. Dan Hardy will say, oh, you know, it should be allowed. Mike Bisping says you should. Anyway, but this is my point. Big Mo says, I think this is on a tweet. He says, getting MRI when I get home, probably ligament damage. And please give my opponent some slack. That kick was all good. It was my job to defend it, and I didn't. Let the man enjoy his victory. When I read that, Mo, I stepped down off of my high horse, because I was, of course, going livid. I hate the oblique kick, but that's a completely different thing. But that is a classic example, that and the other text, of just you all over, right? You all over, that ability to go, yeah, fair enough. And it's that honesty of going where you are, which will take you. You don't make any excuses for anything, even in the low. And I can see you're a bit low now, right? Fine. You're still taking the time to find positivity and sharing. You give me one of those sort of people any day of my life over the gobshites. I think it's impressive. Yeah. Sorry, carry on what you're saying.
No, yeah, so, but I appreciate, obviously, you sharing that as well, because it's just how I felt. I'm like, it's like when I won by elbows and everyone's like, oh, that's an illegal move. It's 12-6, is this and that. I'm like, listen, do you guys have nothing better to do than to try and it's not necessarily because that was a high point for me, but try and kick a man down when he's had like literally a really good debut and he's won the 50 grand bonus. I'm like, do you know what I mean? It's stuff like that. And it's like the same with Khalil. It's like, listen, he performed the technique, he performed really well that fight. Like, give the man his credit. And the thing that also for me is like, some people saying, oh, well, this is how you defend an oblique kick, showing showing Adesanya stepping back and throwing a roundhouse kick. Now, number one, obviously, my leg was a little bit, like I said, it was a bit compromised. So to do these intricate moves was a little bit more difficult for me. So, you know, but aside from that, he did the move twice. I defended the first one because I wasn't punching.
Exactly. It was about 2 seconds earlier. He threw it and you just pulled away, and then there was the second one caught you. Exactly.
I moved out of the way. So people are like, oh, well, this is how you defend it. Well, I'm like, well, listen, I defended the first one because I wasn't jabbing. The second one, I put all my weight onto that jab. he saw it coming again from a strategical game plan standpoint, and he capitalized. Fair play to him. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I can't, I can't say anything. But like I said, to even be in the cage with such an athlete for me was an absolute honor. One thing I will say is that there has to be definitely a change or shift in mindset in terms of really this is the hurt business. And I know some people can perform like, Stephen Thompson and still be in a happy, kind of sportsman. I really do feel, and especially at this time now, like I'll forever be Modestas. I'll forever be that guy that, like I say, a bit happy-go-lucky, a bit of a moron, like does some stupid stuff.
No, not a moron, ever. We love you, man. At every level. I know what you're saying, but I'm not going to let you.
You know what I mean?
I do know.
I'm a bit wacky. So me and you would get on so well as well, just because we're sort of like just down to earth, like up to have a lot. So me as a person, that will never change. Me, being nice to people and stuff like that, that will never change. But also, there's a bit of perspective that has to be taken. Obviously, he saw a weakness, he took it. Like, sports, and the thing is, it's like you have to bring a bit of intensity, a bit of like
you've got to be crime. I say this to my son, you've got to be a bit of a bastard. It was the same with rugby. We had exactly the same conversation, that you do have to be a bit of the bastard, because as you quite rightly said, it is, who's best to acknowledge on this, which I find phenomenal. He's another man I love, right? It's Roger. Roger is what an amazing man, but he's a fucker when he goes after you, right? Isn't he? You just think he's nasty, and then it's a very fine line. I don't think I could master it. I'm too aggressive. But Roger is one of those kind of, he's like you, a lovely, lovely guy, but on the mats, he's a killer, right?
And I think I just need to bring more of that out, and it just means that, like, look, Khalil said it best. It's him or me, and I think that's more of a mentality. Like, I talked about it a lot about having to be that guy who's a bit. But it's just like, it seems like, oh no, but that sportsman still. Like, for example, even in the fight, when I sat down and sat down on a couple of my punches, I started landing more, and like I was not exchanging because I was trying to. Like I said, I was trying to set up my thing, so I kept on getting thrown off. But realistically, what would have helped would have me just literally a bit of like a backyard brawl, just stand and let a couple of shots fly, land a couple, then go for the tech. Do you know what I mean? Things would have flown better if I literally would have had that aggressive mindset. Like, do you know what? Let me just sit down and bite down on my mouthpiece and then throw a couple of big shots. And when I was trying to play too much of the technical game, too much of the outside like range, try and find the jab, like when you're being too much of a sportsman and too much of an athlete, that's where it can be a downfall for you in fighting sometimes, because if your tactics aren't working, that it has to boil down to, let me just be an absolute savage and go in there and throw some big shots.
That's a great observation. That is incredibly, it's incredibly mature observation. And I agree with you, but look at that, man. Look at what you're doing. Again, only a week out from the fight, obviously a low time, right? And your legs hurting. But that's winning mentality. You're not hiding from anything. For someone to admit publicly, bearing in mind we're public, that I need to change my mindset, that for me is a winning mentality. Yeah, that's why it's amazing, man. It's amazing. It's impressive.
I appreciate it, man. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and say that there's not been, I mean, I still can't sleep. So it's like, and I know once I get this operation, it's going to be exactly the same thing. I know I'm literally just going to be high off of cocodamol for the next like 4 weeks after the operation. Like, and that's literally the first time I had that I had a leg operation. That was the only thing that was able to put me to sleep, was having to take cocodamol, because I couldn't sleep any other way.
Just be careful with that stuff, man. Don't get caught on it, eh?
I know. I know it's obviously, at the end of the day, it's just medication to help with the pain. Because I and even in the first time around, I tried to be a bit of a tough guy and be like, I don't need this medication, because I don't like being on medication. I don't like having, you feel drowsy. You just don't want this. Like, you just want to just get on with your life and be. but I had to take it because at one point the pain got so bad that I had to get rushed to A&E, wait there for another 4 hours for them to tell me you're absolutely fine, just take your medicine. Like,
this is the thing that people don't realize, right? Now, you know, of course, I haven't been in sports at your level, fighting your level, but I know injuries through my whole kind of tennis and martial arts. And so on the TV, people see an injury, oh, he's done his knee, right? And then they shut off on the next events, and they forget now the amount of pain an athlete goes through, not just for a couple of weeks, but for a long time. And they forget that, you know, at least for the first 10 days, you can't sleep because of the pain. And I don't think people appreciate how hard it is, how hard the fight game is. Even in my little shoulder tweaks from a bit of jiu-jitsu, you know, with old Dean, me and him, even that, you're like, oh, I can't sleep, I've got a headache. But I don't think people appreciate and respect how much, you know, we're the fans, right? But how much the gladiators that we're watching, the modern day gladiators, how much they are putting themselves through basically to entertain us and live their own dreams, of course. And it's brutal. It's hard, man. All respect from me, man. All respect.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous game. Obviously, that, you know, injuries happen, stuff happens. I mean, like I said, Khalil broke his hand in that fight as well. So it's like, you know, even the winning athlete can sometimes come out, you know, a little bit injured as well. And do you know what? Funny enough, my leg, like, as bad as the injury was, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, I've actually not been hurting quite as bad as people may have think. Like, and again, when the doctors examine me, they're like, I don't know how the hell you're able to walk, like, you know, jog a little bit and be okay, because, you know, it looked quite horrible. But obviously, because
it did look horrible. I did jump off the sofa, I have to say. There was a lot of swearing going on in my house when I saw that.
I can imagine. Just echoing through the hall.
It really was. It was, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, realistically, that's another thing you've got to be grateful for, that I'm actually not in such massive pain. Like, you know, for how bad the injury could have been, I came out of it from actually like, because the leg muscles were strong enough to hold everything in place, even with such a blow like that, even with a previous injury. Like, this is why I got to thank Leanne, who's my physiotherapist.
What's Leanne's surname? Should we give her a proper shout out? Leanne, who is she?
It's called Distinct Physiotherapy. That's the name of her company. She's just opened up a place in Radlett in Batlers Green Farm. So if anyone wants to go and check her out in terms of physio, she's the woman to go to, because
what we'll do after this, I'll put the link in the description as well, right? We'll add that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, 100%. Cool. So I mean, look, for my leg to be so strong, to scaffold everything and hold everything in place. Now, she's not a fan of that, because obviously she wants the joints to be healthy and good, and unfortunately in my sport we're never going to be 100%, but she knows, because she competed in gymnastics and stuff like that. So you know, she knows these things, and I think that's why it makes her such a good physio for me personally. And this is the thing, everyone's got to find things that work for themselves. I think I remember I talked about this before in that book, Winning. Like, you've got to find things that are suited for yourself, and for me, she's been absolutely amazing in terms of, you know, like, look, all these doctors thought this was going to be the most horrific injury, all ligaments gone, and realistically I come out with all ligaments still intact. So it's like, you'll think amazing. So I mean maybe hanging on by a bit of a thread, but at the end of the day, the point, like a tiny stretching. You know what I mean? But the point being is that for my leg to still be okay after all, like, where everyone thought everything's going to be, like, I've come out pretty good, I'd say. I mean, like I said, don't have to take ibuprofen. I feel fine. I know after the operation, obviously it will be painful, and you know, there's going to be a long road to recovery. But the point is that, like, right now, like, leading up to the operation, I can actually function normally. I don't have any. The only pain that I have is, I guess you could say, emotionally and, you know, mentally, just because. And, you know, Mike Tyson talks about a lot about, you know, humiliation and stuff like that. And yeah, there is a lot of humiliation for me, because, like I say, it wasn't it's just been such a long road of me trying to prove myself, when it's like I never seem to be able to quite. It's like my last fight was getting closer to that, but it wasn't the peak. And then I thought, now is going to be me at the peak of me showing what I'm all about, and for me being able to perform at my best. And then it ends up being a bit of a worse performance than the last one, even though I was still coming back into the fight, so it's just like, when the hell is it going to happen that I'm actually going to be able to perform at the level that I know I can? But this is where I say the things that me and my dad have been constructing together already since that fight, like, for the future, we know what we need to do, what we need to work on, and how we're going to be able to bring it out. And then that's it. Then at that point, it's just literally, you just got to keep believing in yourself, keep telling yourself good things, keep visualizing, keep putting the law of attraction into play, and then going for it. But I think, like I say, momentum is a big thing. It's a big thing in life. Momentum has not been on my side for the past year and a half. But I will say this, is that now the momentum, you can feel the tides turning. The operation's getting done. It's getting done very quickly. It seemed very promising to still be in the UFC and stuff like that. So all these things that are now, I think, leading into another shift to where things are going to start rising on the up again. I feel like having this comeback story for me is now, the narrative has changed. The narrative has changed from, he's had one hiccup and now he's going all the way to the top.
Yours is a very interesting narrative. That's why I wanted you to speak to people, because this is a thing, and this is why people appreciate that. Just to give you a bit of context, we had a lot of feedback from the first interview. Right? People loved you. Found that really helpful. What a great guy, etc., etc. Right? And actually, I just want to. These are key stats from the UFC. Right? There are currently, according to their website, 724 athletes on the UFC roster, guys and girls. Right? And there are 12 championship belts. I think it's 4 women, 8 guys. If that is 1.66% of people in the UFC will be winning, the rest are so-called, very inverted commas, losers, right? Now, I'm going to talk as a fan and as a listener of my own podcast. I don't listen to my own podcast, but you know what I mean? As a listener, that's a bit awkward. What the hell? Listening to your stuff, right? But actually, my personal interest, I don't look at the very top. Like when I was playing tennis, I couldn't really relate to at that time it was Boris Becker and Agassi, right? I couldn't relate to that. They were so good, it didn't mean anything to me. In fact, they were so far away, it didn't inspire me. What inspired me were the guys who were pitching up around the kind of top 1,000 level, then into 500, because I go, they're a lot better than me, but I can see what's going on here. And so, for example, your story, I'm talking as a kind of listener, as a fan, I can relate to that. That means more to me as a human being than watching McGregor win and get his boat. So it just doesn't mean anything to me. It's so separate. But your story is real. People can take your story and go, yeah, that's like my writing career, my marriage, any list. And that's why I think people are loving you, because it's a real and true story. It's longer than you thought it would be. It's harder than you thought it would be. It's more painful. Welcome to the rest of our worlds, which is why I think there was such good feedback, because people going, I learned more listening to your story than any kind of, who's next? Adesanya, I don't know. He's cool. He moves well. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not going to learn anything from that. But from you, I learned tons, man. So that's important that you remember how valuable your story is.
And that's that's actually a big thing for me, to be able to inspire and motivate, and obviously for the next generation coming up to sort of lead by example and be, I've always wanted to be a role model. I wanted to be, sort of seen in the public eye and stuff like that. Those are things that, like I said, that stemmed a lot mainly just from sort of confidence issues when I was younger. But for the most part, I just wanted to be able to inspire people to live their lives in a way to just never give up and keep going. And if I could teach anyone,
trust me, you are doing that. You trust me, you are absolutely, in my view, I've been around kind of this sort of game a long time. You are very inspiring. And I would take you into any school I teach in and go, listen to this. If you got problems with moving forward, listen to this guy. You are, man. You're already there.
Do you know what? But it's mad because from the same point, I think everyone sort of feels this as well. It's just like, but at the same time, like we always talk about how everyone's got their different journey, and you just got to learn to embrace it. Like all the situations that I've had where I've just embraced it and just took it in full swing, that's when I've always performed or done better in my life. You're just thinking, why the hell does my road have to be so rocky, sort of thing? When you see
exactly.
some other people's road, you know, going so smoothly and stuff like that. But you've also got to remember that although everything in the public image, it seems so smooth and everything, there's actually probably a lot of hardships that they do also have to go through. It's just done in a different way. Their losses may come from different situations. From, you know, everyone has losses in training, but like, you know, I've had losses in training and stuff like that, but those are the things where you learn. But, you know, some people just adapt differently. Listen, genetics and God, and, you know, being able to give certain limbs and you know, like physical attributes and stuff like that, all of these things are factors that play into the part. But you have to make the most of what you have. You got to make the most of your situation, embrace your environment and the things that are going on in your life to be able to get the best out of yourself. The point is to always continually get the best out of yourself and out of your situation, and always be moving forward. Like, although you may take a couple steps backwards, but you're going to take those steps forward. Like, if you're ever knocked down, you've always got to come back. This is why the narrative for me when it came into the UFC was to firstly show a guy that, you know, it looked like things were over in terms of getting to the UFC, and then comes in and has an absolute, because that what they were trying to do is get into a point where they could have pushed me in terms of how, you know, Paddy, who's had an amazing debut, you know, he's going to get pushed now because of his personality, the way he's doing things and stuff like that. I could have arguably got a very similar push had things gone in a better light. But again, where's the story in that now? Do you know what I mean? Like, now that narrative is gone. That narrative has to go through my mind. I can't even think about that anymore. I've got to realize is I've got to let it go. Like, in my head, I had a certain way of things how we're going, but unfortunately, that's not the way the things are turning out. I've got to let that go now. What I've got to focus on now is the new narrative, which is, okay, you've been brought back down a little bit with the injury and stuff like that, but you're going to show everyone that even with 3 losses back to back, you're going to come back and you're going to go towards title. The goal, I said since the beginning in that post as well, was to be a UFC champion. Well, we're going to do that, but we're going to be there. We're just going to have to take a little bit longer.
Look at this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, do you know what I mean? And he's had so many opportunities, then knocked back down. And you see, everyone's journey is different. They've been knocked down in different ways. Everyone's just got to come back. And the thing is, people will be quick to then give up and just say, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore, and this and that. And yeah, the thoughts like that do run through your head, like, am I good enough, or this and that? And then you've got to realize, it's like, hold on a minute, like, you are bloody good enough. You have got the tools. You just need to be able to construct it in a better way. And listen, I'm very fully aware of what I need to do to achieve that. And I'll have to admit, it's a bit sad. Like, this is where the humility is, like, it's really painful, because when you're talking to, you know, all the top guys in the game, like, you know, having your interviews before the fight and, you know, talking about a renewed you, and, you know, you're going to show everyone this and that because you're feeling very confident with yourself, and, you know, you just want to believe in yourself. And the next thing you know, it doesn't go your way. It's just like your voice holds no credibility anymore. Like,
I'm going to stop you. Can I stop you?
Go on.
I'm not going to have you say that. I tell you this. This is important, and I know this because I'm a storyteller. It's what I do for a living. I write for a living. I gotta let everyone into a secret. Media is bullshit. Sorry, we're all lying to you. We're all creating a story to make you believe something. It's all utter bullshit that we're being told to do. So through our workday, right? And it doesn't last. Which is why once that story blows itself out, what will be left, Mo, is what you have. A good heart, right? Never, ever, ever underestimate that. And that doesn't mean you can't be a fighter as well, right? But what will be left after all this bullshit finishes is the people that you turn to, who you can trust, who can help them through their dark nights of the soul, right?
Yeah.
That's you. Now, I'm not saying that give up fighting, you need to be a good guy. That's not my point at all. What I'm saying is it's all an illusion. The truest story is the one you're telling. Someone who comes on publicly and says how hard it is to do what you do, so that we can all go, bloody hell, that has really helped me. Listening to, I wish Paddy and everyone all the success they have. That doesn't interest me. That doesn't help me. That doesn't help me when no one is buying my books. That doesn't help me overcome I couldn't give a shit. But when I listen to the story of someone who's also chasing a dream that kind of goes sideways and goes forwards and all that sort of stuff, I go, oh, that's like, Bloomsbury turning down my book. That's the same story. So what I'm saying is it's really important you don't underestimate that you have. You have so much more than a great jab and cross and wrestles. And that is what will outlast your game, because your fight game is going to be finite, right? And at the back end of it, you will have so much more, as well as you're going to be a champion as well. I'm not talking about that, but don't underestimate the other stuff you have. Sorry, I couldn't let you say those things.
Oh, no, of course. And I really appreciate that, obviously. And this, I guess it's from a point of the way I'm coming from it from, and 100%, obviously, and that's the thing, if I can inspire and help someone to do certain things, and we can relate and have that relation with the public and stuff like that, for me, that's absolutely amazing. And that is one of my goals, is obviously just, like I say, to be able to motivate, inspire, and to be able to help people to sort of get through their demons and do their thing. Yeah. But from a competitive standpoint, you've got to look at, no one cares about anything other than results. So, and this is actually a source of fuel and fire and motivation for me, a bit of a chip on my shoulder, which I feel every athlete needs to have in order to be able to go through everything, to go over to be able to achieve their goal, and to really have that fire to want to go and train hard and do what you got to do. But like I say, it's just, when you're talking in the media, when you're confident with you, I'm just being honest when I talk with them. I'm not blowing any steam up my own. I'm generally confident in my abilities. I want to do these things. And it's when you're not coming up to scratch in terms of a results standpoint, when you have got confidence in yourself and you have got belief, and then it doesn't pull through in terms of everyone else's. And I know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or this or that, but technically, the belief in me this is why I say that's where I got my source of fuel. The belief in me from people has gone down. It's oh, well, he hasn't done this or he hasn't done that, and he thought he done, he said he was going to do this and blah blah blah. So at the minute, it's a case of, well, do you know what? Okay, you lot are all going to be on that sort of mind frame, obviously, after these fights, because the result wasn't there. But don't you worry, because now that's where now the story makes it even better, because when I come back, and I'm just going to stay quiet, I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to go out there, I'm going to go and perform. I think this is the thing. I'm going to continue being myself. I'm going to continue being who I am and everything. But then when I get into the cage, I'm going to be a completely different person. And this is the thing that I want to really prove, is that, do you know what? I've had all these things. I'm at the bottom of the ladder. I'm going to work my way up. Slowly, the tension will start growing, and slowly I'll start proving myself. And I know I don't need to prove it to anyone other than myself, and I understand that. But what people have also got to understand, that it's not a bad thing to want to prove stuff to people, because at the same time,
that's a good point. Actually, that is a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. By wanting to prove people wrong, that was a lot of my sole motivation the last time to come back from injury and win in Cage Warriors and do things, because a lot of people didn't believe me, or a lot of people ripped me off, or this or that. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to prove your ass wrong. And it just made me hungrier. It made me more focused. It made me, and it gave me that sense of direction, that path. And then every time people would try and shoot me down, the way you would shoot them down is by going out and performing. So at the minute, I've been shot down, but don't you worry. the way I see it now in my head is that I know I'm going to come back. I know I'm going to fix all the errors. So when I do come back and then I do start talking in the media again and I start, getting ready for fights and this and that, I'm going to be like, do you know what? Now you're going to see that side of me that has been waiting to bust out and break through the doors and, literally shoot everyone on sight sort of thing. So for me, it's all about showing it's the comeback. That's it. That's what I say. That's the narrative. It's the comeback now. And, I embrace that completely. I'm very looking forward to everything that's going to come in the future. I know it's going to be so tough, like a lot of things, financially and spiritually and emotionally. But I know I'm going to get through it, and I know I'm going to come back on top and finally really prove myself, show what my skill set's all about. We've all of these things in life that have been hurdles is only going to make you stronger. Like now, my mental fortitude. I mean, if you think about it even that way, your mental, like imagine like you've got a cut or a bruise mentally, that's going to heal. You're gonna nurture it. You're gonna take care of it, and then next thing you know, when you come back, this is why now even mentally strong in terms of people chatting crap online and stuff like that. I don't even I used to pay so much attention to it, but now it doesn't even bother me. So if you get what I mean, like I'm even going to grow stronger in that sense. My mental fortitude is going to be better, and then even going into the cage and stuff like that.
No, listen, there are very few people I can think of who, after a loss, which is, let's be honest, it's very depressing when we lose. We've all been there. I said my experience was tennis, and I lost a lot. To come out and to show their heart publicly, that for me is the highest level of mental strength. The highest level of mental strength. No, I mean, it's impressive, man. When I reached out to you, I was like, will he do it? It's because it's very difficult. And there you are. I mean, so already what you're doing is you're speaking from pure experience. Everything you're doing is you're learning on the move and sharing that. That is high quality stuff. It's easy to just you could slink away and hide and, I'll come back in a tweet or something like that. And you're here sharing your stuff. That is a strong bloke.
Well, mate, like I say, thank you so much for being so kind and saying all these nice things about me, because obviously, like I said, you go through loads of really bad periods, especially where you like I say, where you're doubting yourself or you're looking back at your performance. But like I say, we're looking forward now. So, when you called me or when you messaged me to ask me to come on the show, I mean, it's funny because like I said, I've been reinvigorated to do my YouTube and stuff like that. And that was one of the things I wanted to do, was perhaps maybe speak about these things and do it in YouTube.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So now I think it's almost like a heaven sent that you messaged me, and it's like, okay, well, now it's almost not even to say that it's like sort of forced me to do that, but it's been giving me a platform to do it with someone that I'm really really good friends with. Obviously we've got a history from training at Rogers, and like I love you and your work and your book, and seeing that you're doing amazing and stuff like that. It's good that we can even just share thoughts and stuff like that, because that's another
time, man. I'm here for you whenever. Listen, I know that you're busy with your time. I don't want to hold you up. I'd speak to you forever, but I'm mindful of your time. So you've just given us absolute gems. You've been honest, open, truthful, it's amazing. I'm very grateful for that. But just give us, from your experience now, you're living from kind of real experience, hardship. For those other people who are not necessarily in fighting, but in anywhere in their life where it's not going as planned, right? You are living the how to get over that. Give us a piece of one gem. I always ask this for my guests. One gem that they walk away from going, yeah, this is how I can use this guy's experience to help me with my not going to plan life.
The one thing I can definitely say is that if you have vision, a goal, a dream, and something just sort of knocks you back, or it's not going the way that you want to, the main thing is just to keep the faith and keep believing. That's and just to know that it won't last forever. As long as you, as I say, continue the faith, continue the belief, continue the same visions that you have, you will get through it. You will find a way. You will find different avenues. Everything will work. You know, the universe will work to your favor. It's just a case of, you know, at the time, unfortunately, but what we won't realize is that in the future, this will all come back around to you look back on it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I needed that.
Yeah, it's only in hindsight you see the path. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it won't last forever. Keep believing. There is a bigger picture. You just have to keep going. The people that never see their dreams come true are the ones who give up. So keep going.
That's the only guarantee. That is the only guarantee. Mo, listen, we should change your act from the Baltic Gladiators to the Baltic Guru. I
like that. That's quite catchy. I like that little ring to it.
I'm only half joking. It's incredibly inspiring. So for you guys who are listening, I'm sure, as I am, incredibly grateful for Mo coming on in, quite honestly, a real, you know, this is his dark night of the soul, as it were. And he's coming on and shared his experience with you all. So please, now this one, definitely share with people. There is so much wisdom from this young man. So share it with those you know are struggling, or they're also having their dark night of the soul. And as ever, if there are people in your lives that you love, kiss them and tell them that you love them. And I'll see you next time on the Bliss Millionaire podcast. Thanks, Big Mo. Lots of love, man.
Nice one, brother.